The world is a much more dangerous place today than it was yesterday. The leading international powers have bet our collective future on a deal with the foremost sponsor of international terrorism. They've gambled that in 10 years' time, Iran's terrorist regime will change while removing any incentive for it to do so. In fact, the deal gives Iran every incentive not to change.
It is a dark day in the history of the world where we stand closer to the brink of nuclear war than ever before. Or it is a day where the Middle East is now safer than it has been in years, maybe decades. Therein lies the very contrary views taken to the nuclear deal between America, her allies, and the government of Iran. A government often in name only, more of a religious dictatorship. Let's welcome back to the Hardline, professor of law at Harvard, political commentator, and author of Terror Tunnels, The Case for Israel's Just War Against Hamas, Alan Dershowitz. Alan, always a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you. Very difficult now in light of what has happened with this deal. But in your opinion, is it now that the President of the United States has taken the Middle East and the world one step closer to nuclear war with this deal?
It really depends on which deal we're talking about. There are two very different deals. The one that the President of the United States told us this morning that he had agreed to, and that would be a deal that would prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. What he is basically telling the American public is that this deal permanently stops Iran from ever developing nuclear weapons. That's the Obama deal. The Iran deal is a very different one. It's the one that permits Iran to develop nuclear weapons after 8.5 years, 10 years, 13, 14, 15 years, depending on the time frame. The deal itself has 3 or 4 distinct time frames. And President Obama, just a few months ago, says the fear is that in 13, 14, 15 years, there'll no longer be any controls on the amount of nuclear provisions that Iran is allowed to develop, and they'll be essentially free to develop the bomb. So before anybody can answer the question, is it a good deal or a bad deal, is it dangerous or not, we have to know what the deal is. It's a contract, and a contract requires a meeting of the minds. There has been no meeting of the minds on this, unless it's a meeting of the minds that we're not aware of, unless the president has told the American public this is a deal that stops Iran from forever developing nuclear weapons, while telling the Iranians, don't worry, it's only a deal that lasts 8.5, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 years. We have to know what the deal is, and Congress has to probe very, very deeply into the nature of this deal.
Alan, I have to tell you, I'm a very bottom line guy when it comes to some things. And in a case like this, with what you are saying, with what other people are agreeing with you on, with regard to the two deals here, then should we not be able to look the president in the face and say, you're lying? I don't want to hear misspeaks. I don't want to hear anything about, well, it's how you interpret it. Shouldn't we just say this is a lie?
No, we have to ask the president what he means. Is he telling the American public that this deal forever prevents Iran from developing nuclear weapons? I suspect if the question is put to him directly, he'll say, no, it doesn't forever stop them.
Because we can't. Isn't that just impossible? You can't stop somebody forever, right?
Well, you can at least make a deal that doesn't permit them after a certain number of years to do it. Remember what happened with North Korea. I mean, everybody's been making this analogy. I've prepared now a chart comparing the words of President Clinton with the words of President Obama. And after President Clinton assured us that the deal will require the dismantling of North Korea's nuclear program, within a few years they were testing a nuclear weapon, and the peninsula was far less safe place than it was before the deal was struck. So we have to know what the deal is. I want to give the president the benefit of the doubt and allow him to tell Congress candidly and honestly that this is not a deal that forever prevents Iran from developing nuclear weapons. It's a 10-year moratorium. It's a postponement. It's a yellow light that will quickly turn to green rather than a red light. I want to hear the president say that. And then let's see what the Democrats in Congress say in response. Right now, the Democrats in Congress have cover. They can say, well, the president has told us this is a deal that will stop, that will prevent. He used words like that. That are absolute words. But if he doesn't mean that, if the meeting of the minds is that this is a moratorium, not a prevention, we must know that. In a democracy, the people have to know what they're voting for. We cannot be asked to buy a pig in a poke. And that's what we're being asked to do.
I've only got 30 seconds left. You used the words candid and honest. Can this president be either at the same time?
I think he can be if he's asked the right questions. I think the burden is on Congress at this point to ask him the hard questions, and the burden is on him and his administration to answer honestly and candidly and tell us what the deal means. And then, if he says the deal means forever, then he has to get the Iranians to acknowledge that. They'll never do that.
Yes or no? Do you think this Congress has the bipartisan guts to ask those questions?
I think they do have the guts to ask the questions. Do the Democrats have the guts to vote their own conscience, which in many cases is against this? I know there are some Democrats who are already suggesting that they'll vote against it unless the president needs their vote. Then they'll vote for it.
Reminder,
that's hypocrisy.
The book again is Terror Tunnels, the case for Israel's just war against Hamas. Always a pleasure to have Alan Dershowitz on the show. Thanks so much, Alan. When we come back, dangers some simply cannot see when blinded by legacy.